What is up, gang? Thank you for checking out Sledgehammer TV tonight. With the Royal Rumble now in the rear view, we are firmly on the road to WrestleMania, and the first stop on that road is the Fallout show that takes place on the Monday Night Raw after the Rumble, and that was tonight. It is here, time is flying, and we had the winner of the Royal Rumble show up on Monday Night Raw tonight, Edge. You think you know him, you think you know him, you think you know what he's gonna do, you think you know who he's gonna pick, but you don't, and we still don't really know who Edge is gonna pick, even though he was on Monday Night Raw tonight, and he came to Monday Night Raw to call Drew McIntyre a wuss, and then set him up to get kicked in the face by his best friend. And it's almost like Edge knew that was going to happen as we kicked off Monday Night Raw with a brogue kick to the champ's face. And it was pretty interesting, if I'm going to be honest about it. But then it was all pretty much downhill from there, as we had another Bad Bunny, Mad Bunny Man sighting and some more mystical, magical hijinks by the Twisted Sister Alexa Bliss, and I don't know if I'm getting sick and tired of it. But we are going to talk about all of that and so much more right here and right now. My name is Nick Nightmare. You are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show's Monday Night Raw review and reaction show. Let's do it.
The Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
You know, the more I think about it, the more I see that this show was really kind of an up and down kind of show. It was almost all over the place, and they did some things tonight that I really do not agree with. You had the debut of Damien Priest tonight, right? We had him show up on this show. For what reason? This is something that you usually reserve for the show after WrestleMania. The Raw after the Royal Rumble is not for special debuts. He made his debut last night in the Royal Rumble. He makes his main roster debut here tonight on Monday Night Raw. And what could be so wrong with that, you ask? Well, what do you call it when you take a Miz TV segment and a Bad Bunny and you mix them together in a pot called Monday Night Raw? You get a really shitty way to debut Damien Priest. All right, now listen, I'm not shitting on the artist. I don't really know anything about him. It's not coming from a disrespectful point of view, but I need you guys to understand something. If you happen to know who Bad Bunny is and you know his music and you're a huge fan, great for you. You're probably really enjoying all of these things that they're doing with him. But you have to take a look at things through my perspective. I have no fucking idea who this guy is, and my only exposure to Bad Bunny was what we saw last night in his Booker T song performance at the Royal Rumble, which to my ears sounded like death. It sounded like the notes of death hitting my eardrums and just made me want to change the channel. Now, maybe that's because I don't speak fluent Spanish. Maybe if you're part of the Latin, fan base, you're really enjoying this and you really, having a good time with Bad Bunny around. And you think it's great that he was shown with Damien Priest and was like the catalyst for his debut. This archer of infamy, this really dangerous guy from NXT being debuted by a man with 3 man buns in his head that really I think a majority of the wrestling audience has no idea who this guy is, which makes this really a bad idea. Just because you're number 1 on the Spotify, charts right now, don't mean you're a worldwide sensation to the point where everybody knows you. You did a song with Cardi B. Does that mean I'm going to know you? No. Cardi B, not my cup of tea either. That type of music is just grating against my brain. I just can't deal with it. And I don't know who he is, so it affects my perception of how they debut a guy like Damien Priest. Again, no disrespect to the artist, to the man. I'm sure he's a great guy, and I'm sure he's talented. But, when that car pulled into Monday Night Raw tonight, We had a Bugatti driving in, or whatever the fuck, the Ducati car, or what, I don't know what it was. It was some fancy schmancy rich guy car driving in to the arena tonight, to the Tropicana Stadium, and then it opened up and we seen these big weird looking sneakers. I was really afraid that we were about to see Shane McMahon. But it was revealed to be Bad Bunny, and him just having something to do with this show tonight. He did have a very impressive, splash off the top rope last night. I guess that's something. And I guess it's good for the exposure for Damien Priest. If you know who he is, I guess it's doing the right thing. But if you're a person like me and you have no idea, and you don't like the style of music, and the only song you've ever heard of his is the one you heard last night at the Royal Rumble, this is probably doing nothing for you, much like it's doing nothing for me. There was a lot of things that did nothing for me on this Monday Night Raw tonight, just like how they brought back Carlito in the Royal Rumble last night, and he spit in the face of everything that is not cool, man. And I love Carlito. I was always a huge fan of Carlito. I loved the whole thing, the biting of the apple, the spitting in the face of the legends. I spit in the face of the people who do not want to be cool. And I was really into it until they paired him with like Primo and Epico and were doing stupid shit with him later on down the line. But I was really into the initial run of Carlito. And I never thought he got the run that he deserved or that he was due. Not that he was due, or, not like he didn't deserve it. It should have been better for Carlito in the 2000s. It wasn't. It didn't go well. So now this guy makes his return in 2021. I'm not saying he should be part of the top of the card. I'm not saying he should be the WWE Heavyweight Champion, but he should be maybe taken a little bit seriously and be given a decent run here. The guy is jacked. He looks great. He looks better now than he did in his youth. And I think it would be a great addition to either Raw or SmackDown. As far as I know, he's not officially signed a return contract yet. But you gotta believe that WWE's maybe gonna want to lock him up so that he don't go somewhere else and try to be cool and spit in other people's faces in anybody in AEW or anything like that. But I enjoy Carlito. I do not enjoy Carlito being used in a random Monday Night Raw as a reason to have another encounter between Jeff Hardy and Elias. We had to see them in the ring again tonight. And of course they made it a tag team match because, that makes it different. And we had Elias and Jackson Riker versus Carlito and Jeff Hardy. Why? Why? If you're going to bring Carlito back, make him do something meaningful. I almost half expected him to turn on Jeff Hardy at the end of this match. I thought it was a tad weird that he was brought back in this babyface scenario, but I guess it makes somewhat sense because he's kind of viewed almost as a legend per se. He's been gone for over 10 years, so he's looked back on as a treasured memory, I guess, and they think the fan perspective of him is babyface. And being that there's no fans in the arena, it doesn't really make a difference, and I do not appreciate the manipulation of the audio. It will make me never ever trust a WWE broadcast again for the rest of my life. When they're piping in "you suck" chants where Vince McMahon wants there to be a "you suck" chant, and they're giving you fake, audience interaction, how can we go forward trusting what we hear even when the people start returning to the crowd? They'll just manipulate it to make you hear the narrative the way Vince wants you to hear it. So I'm really getting annoyed with all of the audio extras on this show, something we haven't really talked about on the reviews yet. Let me know in the comments down below if that shit is starting to get on your nerves too, because I'd rather listen to them wrestle in silence or just keep the mild background noise. Don't add and accentuate and assume what the crowds would have done if we were actually there, because you have no friggin' idea. And the women's situation on this show is completely out of control. Right? They have Asuka as the women's champion. She's trapped in the tag team division. in what is now seemingly being pointed on a collision course with her partner, Charlotte Flair. And all of this is because Ric Flair has Lacey Evans, bam, bam, as his girlfriend. And it's disgusting. And Charlotte really hates it. You know who else hates it? Me, this guy. And you know, I know if you're a longtime fan of this show, maybe even if you're watching us for the first time here tonight, that you hate it too. And if you hate what's going on with Charlotte Flair, which is almost inevitable for the majority of wrestling fans, you can hit that like button for me right now. Maybe even subscribe, because you found a club that truly understands you, because we don't want to hear Charlotte talking in her robo voice, trying to remember her lines. And that's something else that WWE's really got to stop doing. I understand they're trying to, give the show a different feeling for some reason, but you got to stop these interviews at the gorilla position seconds before they're going to come out, because they're just awful. You have all fucking day long to film a pre-recorded, interview segment that you can air live during the broadcast. You don't have to put them on live right before they're going out there. It's being done so often that it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it might mean something if it was used specifically in targeted areas to accentuate the story. But when you do it before almost every single match, it doesn't mean anything. It's just filling time and taking away time from wrestling matches, even though most of the wrestling matches we got tonight didn't need any more time, because a lot of them didn't need to be happening. Like, do we really need to be seeing another encounter between Edge and Randy Orton? Edge came to Monday Night Raw tonight not only to insult Drew McIntyre, as we said in the open of this show, but to also put to rest, finally put behind him, the Randy Orton scenario. He has to get past Randy. He has to do it for his family. Edge is a great promo, as always. Very intense, very believable. He wants to set his sights on a championship. We don't know which one it's going to be, but I think his lack of action on Raw tonight maybe speaks volumes. It seems as if he's going to be on a trajectory to wrestle Roman Reigns. And I think I'm okay with that, because Roman Reigns, of course, is not going to lose. But it would be a great story. It would be a great build. The old lion versus the young lion, the whole thing. If you're going to do it, go big or go home. Put him against the number one guy. Make him put Roman over. And that could be your story for WrestleMania. Not the story we all were expecting. Once again, Daniel Bryan gets kind of pushed out of the scenario, but we'll see what they have planned for him. Maybe it'll be something cool. Probably not, but I'm not going to allow that to, bring down my decision of them putting Edge as the Royal Rumble winner this year. And I want to make it clear, because I feel like with some of the comments I got on last night's video for the Rumble review that you guys don't seem to understand. I don't hate that Edge won the Royal Rumble. I'm actually fine with it. I just hate the fact that he went from 1 all the way through and beat almost everybody that there is to beat on the roster. He went through 29 other able-bodied men, and he went almost 1 hour, and it just seems like overkill, maybe. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way, because the Royal Rumble is the spot where you're supposed to elevate some of your new stars. It's like they did correctly with Bianca Belair. See, because you can't be a hypocrite. Like, I see a lot of people calling each other hypocrites in the comments. Edge is not Goldberg. Alright? It's 2 completely different scenarios. And Edge can still go. Edge can still wrestle. Goldberg could barely wrestle when he was actually an in-ring competitor. It's apples and oranges. The only similarity is, yes, okay, maybe they're both in their 50s. But I'm not saying Edge is going to win the championship. And giving Roman Reigns a win over Edge at WrestleMania That's pretty big. That's pretty big. It would be great. It would be a good way to put a stamp on Roman Reigns and really legitimize what he's doing right now. Because who else is there besides Daniel Bryan or maybe possibly a Big E? Taking down a legend like Edge would be much more meaningful maybe even than those two matches right now. Give Big E time to cook, make him a more viable challenger, a bigger star. Maybe that could be next year's WrestleMania, or maybe by SummerSlam we can have Big E challenging for the championship. Sometimes you just have to be patient. And we're going to have to be patient to find out who Edge is going to face, because we don't know, because it was more important to him to have another match with Randy Orton. And the magic kicks in here. One of the things that I really didn't understand towards the end of this is we had a very terrible match with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. It came out of nowhere. It was for absolutely no reason whatsoever. You would think that Alexa Bliss would be pissed off at a girl like Rhea Ripley, who was the one that eliminated her from the Royal Rumble last night on the women's side of the equation, and maybe that would be a great way to bring Rhea Ripley up to the main roster instead of, wasting Damien Priest with the Bad Bunny Miz TV segment. Maybe this is the way you should have went tonight, and you could have brought a woman to the main roster that is much needed and would actually be a decent and viable competitor in the women's division. But no, they did nothing like that. They just had Alexa come out and fight Nikki Cross and beat Nikki Cross. And she had her little hoodoo voodoo magic where she changed into Alexa Bliss. They're really going in on this camera trickery stuff. They really want to get their money's worth out of the fact that we're going to use camera tricks and, play with time and space, and we're going to have Alexa wrestle in this outfit and this outfit so you could see all of her goodies and throughout the entirety of one match, which is fine. Am I the only one that thinks Alexa Bliss is really kind of hotter in this psychotic phase? Does that make me psycho? Is there something wrong with me? Maybe. But that's another story for another day. But in any case, she takes care of Nikki Cross, and then as she's leaving, Randy Orton is making his way to the ring for his encounter with Edge, and there's nothing, no interaction, no anything. These two people have been trying to set each other on fire for the last month. Last week, Randy Orton, with his severely mangled face, gave Alexa Bliss an RKO, costing her a chance at the women's title. And then tonight, Randy Orton shows up with his beautiful face. He's a beautiful man again. I'm a beautiful man. I got beautiful skin because I use Viper Cream, Viper Cream, Viper Cream. Yeah, Viper Cream. How is he magically cured? 1 week, burn scars, gone. You can't burn the Viper. Viper Cream all over your face. It really sounds terrible now that I'm thinking about all the things that I just said in that little Viper Cream skit. It's awful. It's awful, and it's not meant in that way at all. At all. But you get my drift, right? So he shows up tonight. He's got his Viper Cream, beautiful skin, beautiful man face, and he's gonna fight Randy Orton. He's gonna fight Edge. I'm messing myself up with my stupidity. And not give a shit that Alexa Bliss is standing right there, walking right by him. You're going to ignore the shit out of her and just walk by her like she doesn't exist. This is a woman that threw a fireball in his face. And on the flip side of things, Alexa just allows him to walk by. He cost you the women's title. You had a championship opportunity versus Asuka last week. You had it in the palm of your hands. Literally, you had her by the gullet. And you blew it. You blew it because Randy Orton screwed it up for you. And you didn't want to do anything in that moment. Okay, fine. So she would eventually get her revenge in this match because Alexa Bliss is the reason why Randy Orton lost his match with Edge tonight in the main event of Monday Night Raw. Randy Orton looked as if he was going to win the matchup, and then all of a sudden Alexa Bliss shows up sitting on the turnbuckle. Again, let's take advantage of the camera trickery here. And starts bleeding from the mouth. Randy Orton's distracted just long enough for Edge to hit the spear and get the 1, 2, 3, and then the show goes off the air. And I just don't really understand where they're going with it at this point. Randy Orton doesn't have a female that he could bring into the equation to equal out the Alexa Bliss thing. The Fiend has been nowhere to be found. He's sitting there trying to come up with a new look, I guess. Maybe he's having a hard time topping the mask, or I don't know what the delay is. But they're definitely holding it off, and they're playing it through this Alexa Bliss Randy Orton feud, and it's kind of seeping its way into anything else, and I just don't get it. I don't get it. Where is it going? And when is it going to be done? Because I'm starting to lose my patience with it. Even though Alexa's been doing some of the best stuff she's ever done. If you watch an Alexa Bliss match, even though it was tonight unnecessary, it was pretty entertaining just based off of her performance, her facials and her expressions and the way she's playing the character is really fun and really different. But when it's being used in matches with Nikki Cross that have absolutely no meaning to it, oh, well, they used to be partners, Mr. Nightmare. Yeah, well, this was like fucking, what, months ago, man. Nobody cares about this. This is a story that's been dead for weeks. Alexa's been feuding with Randy. It's had nothing to do with Nikki Cross at all. And they just pulled it out of their back pocket because, oh, yeah, remember we used to do this? Let's do this again because we don't know what else to do with Alexa Bliss. When all she needed to do was show up in the corner on Randy Orton's match. That's it. She needed to have a match. Even though she's doing good stuff, it was unnecessary. Just like a lot of stuff on tonight's Monday Night Raw. Let's go up and down the card. After Drew McIntyre opened up this show, praising the shit out of the Royal Rumble last night, he put over Bianca Belair. He put over the Roman Reigns match. He talked about how great it was, and he thanked Bill Goldberg. He turned his attention to Edge as he interrupted Drew McIntyre. And Drew was being all respectful to Edge, talking about how, oh, he remembers when Edge came out last year. AJ Styles' foot was on my throat, and it gave me chills, and blah, blah, blah. It was doing the whole I look up to you thing. And then Edge was like, listen, thank you very much, but, like, what the hell is wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I just won the Royal Rumble. Why aren't you kicking my head off? Pretty much implying that he's a puss. It's like, I'm the ultimate opportunist. I would have definitely done that to you. And McIntyre was like, well, I'm not like that. He's not like you. He's a different kind of champion. And then all of a sudden, Sheamus comes out. Sheamus takes offense to Edge talking about his buddy. How dare you? How dare you? His accent was on strong tonight. Came out with his little speakeasy outfit with his little 1940s bandana and his hat, and he was doing his whole, I'm Sheamus thing. And he was sitting there standing up for Drew McIntyre. And then Edge was like, hey, listen, you got a big target on your back. You're playing a very dangerous game. You got to watch what you do here. No matter who he chooses, he's going to walk out of WrestleMania as champion. Edge turns around and leaves. McIntyre was still jaw-jacking him, talking shit as Edge was leaving. He was showing him, yeah, this is the championship, whatever. And then he turns around and eats a big boot right in his mush by Sheamus, who then walked off to the crowd booing, the non-existent crowd booing, to explain the narrative to those of you who are stupid at home and don't know what to think. And that was that. That was that. And the announcers were all like, oh, how could he turn his back on a friendship like that? And Samoa Joe nailed it perfectly. He's like, when there's a championship gold involved, there are no friends. And then there was this crazy little segment where Charlie Caruso asked Sheamus for a comment. Asked Sheamus for a comment. And Sheamus was like, you're Drew McIntyre's friend. You're Drew McIntyre's friend. All you ever been is Drew McIntyre's friend. He's tired of hearing it, and Drew McIntyre's not his friend anymore, and he's going to be the new WWE champion. And I want to be like, hey, listen, first of all, Sheamus, this friendship with Drew and McIntyre, this is news to most of us, right? It's news to me. Right? It's not something that they played over years and years and years on WWE TV. Their paths have crossed in many times, but there was never this story of a deep, truly bonded friendship. And whether or not it's fake or real, it doesn't really make a difference. What's happening here is that nobody thinks of Sheamus as Drew McIntyre's friend. If you're his friend, that's great. This has only been really the focus of your career for the last couple of months. By the way, you've been in the company for over a decade. You've been a king of the ring. You've been a multiple-time champion, mid-card and heavyweight champion. Didn't he win the Royal Rumble at some point? As far as memory serves, I believe Sheamus won it one year. I could be wrong about that. But regardless, Sheamus is Sheamus. He's not, that guy who's Drew McIntyre's buddy. Right, so the motivation here seems a little forced, and all he really had to say was what Samoa Joe said, echoing the bottom line here, is that there are no friends when it comes to championships. You're the winner, and you're the best, because there's only room for one at the top. And even though we're friends, he's going to take him out. It's a very basic wrestling tale told for years, and it's actually not a bad one in this scenario. And I think what's happening here is, like I said, they're setting off this. It's almost like a misdirection. His Edge shows up, so everybody's going to assume Edge is going to maybe challenge Drew, or maybe have something to do with Sheamus and Drew going forward from here. But the more logical thing in my head says that Edge is going to end up on SmackDown challenging the big dog, since he's put Kevin Owens in the rear view now. And they can start building towards that match at WrestleMania. And we will set up Sheamus as the opponent for Drew McIntyre going forward from here. Whether they settle things at the Elimination Chamber and drag it all the way out to the main event of WrestleMania remains to be seen. Because we're very early here. As we said, it's only the first stop on the road to Mania. So we don't really know what they're going to do. Just like they don't really know what they're going to do when it comes to mid-card championships. The United States Championship was on the line. Matt Riddle earned this championship in a ridiculous way. But here we are with this ridiculous match taking place. Bobby Lashley and Matt Riddle actually started out, as it began, I found myself maybe getting into it. There's a couple of real deal MMA guys, hard strikers, and it was kicking off okay. But then Bobby Lashley kind of snapped, and he got Matt Riddle into the Hurt Lock and just wouldn't let it go. And he wouldn't break by the referee's 5 count, and he got himself disqualified. Matt Riddle wins by disqualification, which was the theme of the night. There was either a disqualification or an interference in almost every single match on this card tonight. And MVP was even like, initially he was concerned about what was going on with Bobby Lashley, and Lashley kind of even snapped at him. They started to play "You Suck" chants. That's not appreciated. And then they left, they backed off, and Matt Riddle woke up and was like, he didn't know where he was. He didn't know what happened. The officials told him it was Bobby Lashley. He then tried to get back to his feet, but, they stopped him from getting up, and that was the end of that. Then Bad Bunny pulled in. Bad Bunny showed up to Monday Night Raw. I thought it was Shane McMahon, as we talked about before, and really what's worse? Actually, I think Shane McMahon would have been worse. If we're going to go, what would you have chosen? I guess I would have chosen the Bad Bunny man, because he's going to show up for one skit and he's going to go away. Where Shane McMahon coming back to Raw opens up a whole bunch of possibilities that nobody wants, and they could go on all night long. So the lesser of two evils, I'll take the Bunny every time. We have Randy Orton's promo where he was talking about how he was convinced he had gotten rid of Edge. He didn't think Edge was going to return. He tried to send him home to his family, and he was doing all of this because he loves him, because he's like a brother to him. But now he made a liar out of Randy Orton. Randy Orton's pissed because Edge made a liar out of him. This is standard wrestling motivation 101, right? So there's this match tonight he's going to have. They announce Edge versus Orton tonight. Orton tells Edge he's not going to be main eventing WrestleMania, and there's going to be no mercy and no compassion tonight, which would have been a really great line if No Mercy was actually still a pay-per-view on the schedule instead of Fastlane. Fastlane. I loved No Mercy. I thought it was a great pay-per-view and a great game to play as well. Kofi Kingston is hanging out in the back with Xavier Woods, and they're talking about how Mustafa Ali, they think he's lost his mind because there's no way everything that happened to Kofi 2 years ago was going to happen for him. Kingston had Woods' back tonight, which is something different, I guess, from what we've seen, as Xavier Woods has taken on the entirety of Retribution, and we are going to continue that story here with his match with Mustafa Ali. Now, normally the babyface has to run the gamut and defeat all of the henchmen to get to the leader, but in this case, he has been defeated by everybody, so naturally he's going to deserve this opportunity to fight the leader of the group, Mustafa Ali. Makes no sense, I know, but this is what happened on Monday Night Raw. This didn't go very long before we got into shenanigans. Ali tried to use a distraction to cause a roll-up on Xavier Woods, but he would be having none of it and got a roll-up of his own for the win. We then got to see Bad Bunny again talking to Damien Priest in the back, which already ruined his debut. It's bad enough that you were going to do the skit you were going to do, but nobody knew he was on Raw. There was no reason for you to show him in the back with the Bunny Man. Further showing how they just don't even know how to do reveals anymore. Forget the fact that this should have been held off until the Raw after Mania. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Then we actually got the segment Miz TV with Bad Bunny. This is some of the worst shit ever. And this is not even the Bunny Man's fault. This is because The Miz and John Morrison are just fucking awful. And they're just trying to put over the performance last night. They talked about how The Miz destroyed his DJ equipment. And The Miz is doing all this because he wants to collaborate with this guy. And he's not interested in working with them, obviously. But he said he has a friend that wanted to be on Miz TV. In fact, the only reason he's on Miz TV is because his friend wanted to be on it too. Enter Damien Priest, and we have Damien Priest's first match on Monday Night Raw against The Miz. Against The Miz. Keith Lee showed up. He was put immediately in the main event. Not that it did him any good. He wasn't even on the show tonight again. Hope there's nothing wrong with the big man. Hope he's healthy and okay. But Damien Priest's first match against The Miz. You would think that they would have the intelligence to make Damien Priest annihilate The Miz in less than a minute. Now, this match didn't go much longer than maybe 5 minutes tops, but the fact that I had to see Damien Priest sell offense for The Miz and the amount of offense he had to sell just felt wrong. This guy could have ate The Miz for breakfast, shit him out, and then used him for his tennis balls in his backyard somewhere, if he even fucking plays tennis, but probably not. I don't think he's a tennis player. That's why he's a fucking pro wrestler. But I'm just using analogies. You know what I'm saying? You guys know what it's all about. Anyway, this segment ended and went into the match. The match was a basic Damien Priest match in which there was another distraction when the Morrison tried to distract Damien Priest. This brought out Bad Bunny, who went for the briefcase. And when there was a confrontation there, Bad Bunny hit Morrison in the face with the microphone. And then Priest gave The Miz his move, which he's calling The Reckoning, which is also the name of Mia Yim, which I think is weird. And I don't know if anybody else caught that, but isn't that her Retribution name? Isn't she Reckoning? And now Damien Priest is using her to win matches. Just want to throw that out there. Anyway, it's not that it was a bad match. I just don't think it was a great way to have Damien Priest's first match on Monday Night Raw. If you disagree, sound off in the comments below. We had the Tag Team Championships up for grabs tonight. The Loser House Party. Losers. They've actually been on a roll as of late. They put together a string of victories over the course of the last couple of weeks, and of course that puts them in line for a title shot. The thing that's going on here that's wrong is the fact that they're still planting the seeds for this, Hurt Business breakup. Shelton and Cedric retain the titles in a pretty decent tag team match, but I'm getting sick and tired of the infighting. It was a very good tag team matchup, but the loser House Party are not going to win the tag team championships, and I'm really hating this conflict within the group. I feel like there's so much more mileage to get out of the Hurt Business. They're really only getting started, and you're trying to break them up already. And that's just not vibing well with me. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Then we get the Triple Threat Tag Team Women's Match. This is going to feature 3 teams of women, and the winners are going to get a shot at the newly crowned Women's Tag Team Champions Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, who are now 2-time Women's Tag Team Champions. These 3 teams are Asuka and Charlotte Flair, the former champions, Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, the only other tag team of women on Monday Night Raw, and in a thrown-together makeshift tag team, which they've actually teamed together before, I believe, but it's been quite some time, and Naomi, who came back at the Royal Rumble, has come back to Monday Night Raw, and she's getting some match time because they're putting her with Lana. You see, I guess the WWE realized they were not ever going to get Lana over as a singles wrestler, so we're going to try our luck in the women's tag team division. Now, I'm the first one to tell you we need women's tag teams, but this is not the one that we need. Okay, Naomi does not need to be latched to Lana in a tag team division that's essentially going nowhere. We have the Women's Dusty Classic going on right now, and the winner of that tournament is going to eventually face the Women's Tag Team Champions. So I don't believe that Naomi and Lana even stand a chance against Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, as that would be the bigger match to build towards for whoever wins the Dusty Classic. And I certainly don't think Asuka and Charlotte Flair are going to end up retaining the titles, especially after what happened with them in this match, which was just more of the same shit we've been seeing with Charlotte Flair, which is now spreading across every show. It infected the Royal Rumble, and now every time you hear the woo, you just start to cringe, because Ric Flair's going to come out with Lacey Evans. Charlotte Flair's going to turn around and give a whole lot of fucks, even though she shouldn't give a fuck, and she should pay attention and finish her match in spite of them trying to distract her. But that certainly didn't happen tonight. Ric Flair came out with his new Charlotte 2.0 bot girlfriend, which is gross, and Charlotte Flair for some reason got pissed off, acted like a hissy fit little teenager, tagged Asuka into the match, and then left to go investigate something about Rick and Lacey. I don't know what made her want to go check further. Like, maybe she wanted to see what robe Lacey was wearing this week. Maybe she wanted to say something to her dad, like, stop being a disgusting fucking perv ball. I don't know. All I know is that this left Asuka high and dry. She ended up eating the pin. Naomi got the pin, which is fine, but she ended up eating the pin. Not only one half of the former Women's Tag Team Champions, but the actual Raw Women's Champion. And this is unforgivable because you had 2 perfectly able-bodied women that could have lost this match, giving Naomi and Lana the win while not hindering your woman's champion. You idiots. You've been making Asuka look less and less important by the day. All to further your Charlotte Flair agenda, which is disgusting. Why didn't Dana Brooke take the pin? Why didn't Mandy Rose take the pin? Why didn't they win by disqualification or some shit? Anything but making the champ lose. Why? Because you want to tell a story between Asuka and Charlotte? If Charlotte Flair turns heel again, I'm going to vomit all over this table right here, because I don't care. If Asuka gets pissed off and turn heel, now we're talking, because it sets up possibly Bianca Belair in the babyface role to face a heel Asuka at WrestleMania, which I think would be a great match. But I still think the money match is Belair versus Banks. But that would also, I think, require one of those two girls to turn heel in order to get the most out of that scenario. Sasha Banks is the babyface champion right now. Bianca Belair is pretty much a babyface challenger. Everybody's on board. Everybody's buying into, the EST. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on and what Bianca decides to do. But in this scenario where they're having Asuka being pinned so frequently lately and everything revolving around Charlotte, it just doesn't seem like that might be the case, and that maybe Asuka is going to be on a collision course with Charlotte Flair again, only for them to give Charlotte the belt back. And we all knew that was the agenda from day one. But hopefully I'm wrong about that. I'm not wrong about much, and I don't want to really ever be wrong, but in this case I hope I'm wrong. Because another reign for Charlotte Flair this year is not what this company needs. It needs to move forward by giving it to new women, new superstars. Jeff Hardy and Carlito defeated Elias and Jackson Ryker. Again, this was a weird one. For some reason, there was a lack of chemistry between Carlito and Jackson Ryker. He didn't look great in this spot, but it was fun to see Carlito back. He hit a hell of a backstabber that looked great. And Jeff Hardy then tagged in, nailed a swanton bomb for the pin. At least Carlito got the win, but I'm tired of seeing Jeff Hardy involved with these two in any way. Then we got our promo from Edge, which was a really great promo where he talked about how he needs to stop this whole thing with Randy Orton, and it ends tonight. He then passed by Damien Priest in the back, and Edge gave him the old, hey, nice job, kid, kind of deal. He got an endorsement from the Rated R Superstar, so that's always helpful. Why we had to see this after Alexa Bliss already made her way to the ring, I don't know. They timed their segments very weirdly. Then we had Alexa defeating Nikki Cross in about, it had to be less than 10 minutes. I don't know. It didn't go on too long. Maybe a little bit longer than it should have, but as we talked about already, it shouldn't have went on at all. She then crossed paths with Randy Orton, and they didn't barely even exchange glances. Randy Orton ignored her completely. Went on for his match with Edge. A nice 15-minute long main event. It was better than some of their previous encounters. I think, personally, it was more entertaining than the greatest wrestling match ever at Backlash. But then Orton was setting up for the RKO when Alexa Bliss pops up on the turnbuckle, starts bleeding from her mouth, causing Orton to be distracted just enough to get hit with a spear and give this night's victory to Edge, who now I predict is going to go on to SmackDown and challenge Roman Reigns in the main event spot at WrestleMania. That's what I think the move is going forward from tonight after what we've experienced on this episode of Raw. Everything The Miz and Morrison touch is just, I just can't even deal with it. It's poop hammer worthy. And pairing them up with Damien Priest really was something, if you didn't get the point throughout this show, it's really something that bothered me. Just sticking in my craw a little bit. Not happy about that. And as much as I'm sick of seeing Edge and Randy Orton, it wasn't the worst match. But when you think about it, last year at this time, Edge came back at the Royal Rumble. He didn't win the Royal Rumble, but he came back at the Royal Rumble. And then on Monday Night Raw, he began feuding with Randy Orton. And now here we are, a year later. Edge returned to the Royal Rumble. He wins the Royal Rumble, and then we go to the follow-up Raw, where he has a match with Randy Orton. So you could see how you could maybe have Groundhog's Day syndrome, or feel like you're falling down a fucking rabbit hole with this company, because they just don't really have a plan, I think. And they shoot from the hip, and every week they just give you bare bones minimum lazy booking with lots of DQ finishes, lots of screwy finishes and interference. I just want to see one match go off with a clean pin. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? I don't know if that day is ever going to come. Maybe not even once this year. Maybe they'll prove me wrong next week. Hopefully, because then maybe we could say things are going in the right direction, even though we all know the only direction they go in the WWE is down. Thank you guys so much for joining me on our review of the Royal Rumble Fallout show for Monday Night Raw. Make sure you're here Friday when we bring the hammer down on SmackDown's efforts of a Fallout show, because even though they are the better of the two shows, no matter how good a show is, we can always find something wrong with it, and that's when the hammer comes down. To be sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. If you were still here at 45 minutes deep into this video and you had a good time and you laughed and had a great time here with us tonight, hit that subscribe button right now. Get us to 3,000 subscribers and then help us continue to grow to get to 10,000 and beyond. That's the goal. That's the mission. Let's grow this army as large as possible, and it all starts with you. So subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit that like button if you had a great time here today, and then share this video with anybody that you might think will enjoy this video along here with us, because I'm recruiting members to the army all the time, and I depend on you guys to help me get the infectious grooves of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show out into the world even more. My reach only extends so far, which is why I need my soldiers. So go out there, be good soldiers, support this show however you can. Follow us on social media at Nick Nightmare, at Instagram at Nick_Nightmare. Buy merch if you want. The link is in the description below. Do it. Do your part as a sledgehead and help us grow more and more every day. Thank you so much. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the team for the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue the Snowball, the most important member of the team, as always, each and every one of you guys. If you missed the Royal Rumble review, it'll be linked in the annotations up above, as well as the hammerings of both of the go-home shows last week, which were absolutely terrible thanks to Monday Night Raw. And while Monday Night Raw wasn't the most terrible show in the world tonight, it still is not anything like it used to be. And it used to be the greatest show on earth. And now, it's just some of the worst stuff you could ever put your eyes through seeing. It's like watching razor blades. It's that painful. Thank you all so much for being here. That, my friends, is going to do it. We are out of here, and we will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com. Boom.